Today, I'm going to be showing you how to install Gentoo Linux on older hardware. Now, what I have in front of me is a Sony Val 2003 laptop. Now, this method will work on even older hardware as well, but this is just what I had laying around, and I figured this is still a pretty chunky laptop, so I figured it'd work pretty well for this video. Now, my method for installing Gentoo Linux on older hardware is essentially just inspecting the hardware, figuring out what I want to install. So the drivers, I got to figure out the CPU ID flags so that everything gets compiled correctly for the hardware. Got to make sure I have the video drivers if I want to get like an X server set up, Xorg, you know. So I find the easiest way to do this is to just boot up into a Gentoo minimal installation CD, and the drivers that will be automatically detected will be loaded, and we could just see what drivers we're gonna need, and also we can look at the CPU ID flags that we're gonna need. Now, after we figure out what hardware we're actually working with and how we're going to configure the Gentoo install, the next thing is I don't actually install Gentoo Linux on this old hardware. I go to a computer which would be better for compiling all of that software, like my main desktop rig, which would work way faster, and I just installed Gentoo Linux in a VM according to all the hardware specifications, drivers, CPU ID flags, everything that I'm about to find out right now. So I install Gentoo Linux in a VM according to whatever I'm going to find out right now, and then once I have my virtual disk image, I just flash over that virtual disk image onto the physical drive. And it ends up working pretty well because it doesn't take a whole month to compile, you know what I'm saying? And I don't have to use, distcc, which lets you compile over the network, because honestly I've found that distcc doesn't work very well unless you want to like join a bunch of computers together to just compile it all together. That might be good, but I don't know. From my experience, distcc did not work very well. So this is my method of doing it. I find that it works way faster. Now, there are many ways that you can flash over your virtual image once you have made your virtual image to the physical drive, and what I'm probably going to end up doing is just putting the image on this USB drive, plugging it in, and then probably through the bootable CD I'll just mount this drive and then flash the image onto the physical drive, because I can see the physical drive right here. SDA/dev/SDA is going to be my physical drive, 40 gigabytes, says right here, and I'll just end up flashing whatever this is probably going to end up being SDB, and I'll just flash the image that I'm going to mount, or I'm going to mount this, and then the image that I get from the mount point, I'm going to flash to SDA. Now you got to make sure that the USB flash drive is big enough to hold the image though. And what I recommend is not making the image, like for example, if I have a 40 gigabyte hard drive, I don't recommend making the image 40 gigabytes big in the first place, because first off, it's going to take longer to flash. Next thing, because the drive isn't actually 40 gigabytes anyway, it's actually 37.3, and so you got to take that into account. So if you did do that, make the image, I'd say 37 gigabytes, slightly smaller than what you see here, just so you make sure you don't end up screwing up. You try flashing it, and then it gets to the very end and says, oops, we ran out of room, and now the whole thing is messed up. So I'm just going to, when I do it, I'm going to make probably like a 16 gigabyte virtual image, and that won't take too long to flash, and it'll fit just fine. And if I make it with, if I use the ext4 partition, I can always resize it later, you know what I'm saying? So now let's actually look at the hardware itself. We'll look at the drivers through lsmod, like this. We could look at the drivers loaded. Man, this thing off of the CD, it really is slow. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do lspci-k Yeah, I'm gonna pipe that into less. So now I can actually view the kernel drivers in use. So for my audio, hopefully I can get audio working on this thing. I have the kernel driver SND_ALI5451, so that's the kernel driver that I'm going to need to install. And it might already come automatically into the kernel. I'm not going to do any custom kernel stuff. I'm just going to use the binary distribution kernel, I think. Now I know I could optimize it and make it faster, but I don't want to get all finicky with it, and I just want to show you, the main purpose of this video. So I could get Gentoo socket if I wanted to enable the use of the card expansion slots, and then I could get access to this thing, but then I'd also have to install the B43 for the wireless capabilities of this card. But I don't think I'm going to be doing that, since I'm not going to be really doing anything with the internet once this laptop is up and running. In fact, I'm not really going to use the laptop, which, I mean, I don't know what you'd expect. If you expected me to use a laptop, I'd like to hear down below what you think I would do on it. But we can also see that I have, and there are many things. There's the Ethernet controller, but I also have the VGA controller right here, which is going to be important if I want to set up an X server, which I do. So it tells me the family it's in, and that's great. So now I know what I'm going to need for that. It's funny because it doesn't mention AMD on here. It only mentions Intel, so I would think it would be Intel integrated graphics, but maybe I'm not sure, honestly. Thing is, it doesn't. The only thing related to graphics it mentions is that one, so I'm gonna install the AMD drivers. Hopefully that will work. And now to the CPU flags. That's CPU ID to CPU flags. And boom, it just tells me what my CPU flags are going to be. So this is a x86 processor, obviously, 32-bit. So, and my 4 flags that this CPU supports are MMX, EXT, SSE, and SSE2. So now I already know my CPU flags. I know what I'm going to need for my GPU driver. I know what I'm going to need for my sound drivers, my speaker drivers, which it does work. Speaker-test. If I run it, it just sounds like white noise. Let's see. Yeah, it just sounds like white noise. Oh, pink noise it says. Oh, my bad. So I'm going to get the sound drivers working on here. In the end, I want to be able to, I guess, try out some games in a on this laptop. I'm going to be using the Rat Poison window manager because that's just my daily window manager that I use. I'm not going to be installing any desktop managers because I don't typically use one anyway, and got to make this system as light as possible. So now that we know everything about this computer, I'd say we're ready to head over to the main computer where we will install it in a virtual machine, and then we'll go ahead and flash it over. So I'm going to type in power off, and it is going to power off. Okay, so now that I am on my main desktop and I have Virt Manager all up and running, and I have recompiled my Gentoo kernel for probably the 8th time today, I think we are ready to go. So let's go ahead and create a new virtual machine. Now you can use any I guess virtual machine software as long as you are able to emulate the CPU and make a raw IMG image, so not a virtual image like QCOW or anything. But if you do end up making a type of image different than like a ISO or .img, then you could convert it later, or at least research if you can convert it, or so that you know how to convert it. But let's go ahead and choose our install media. So I'm going to browse local. I already have the download, but to download the Gentoo install media, all you need to do is go to gentoo.org. Go ahead and click on Get Gentoo or Downloads. Find which architecture you're going to be installing to. Now, there are a lot of architectures on here. Some of them, most of these actually, I have not even heard of. What the heck is HPPA? Long? Loong? I don't even know. But go ahead and just click on, like if you're installing to x86 or AMD 64, I just click on Minimal Installation CD. That's what I got. And now that I have selected my installation media, that .iso, I'm going to make sure it knows I'm going to be installing Gentoo Linux. I'm going to give it about half of my RAM, and 6 should be fine. You don't have to give the same memory and amount of CPUs as what the hardware you're installing to, because that's not really going to matter. If you add more, then it's just going to make the installation process faster. So as long as we actually configure the virtual machine in the end to be compatible with what we're working with, then we will be fine. Now this is where we're going to actually create our I guess virtual image which we are installing to. Now you see it was automatically on QCOW, because I'm pretty sure that is a faster way of storing the data, but I'm going to select IMG because then I don't have to convert it later or anything. Gentoo's fine, I guess, for the name. I'm going to set it to 16 gigabytes as explained before. I don't feel like explaining it again, but yeah, make sure it's IMG. Allocate entire volume now is totally fine with me. Choose volume and forward. I'm going to customize the configuration before the install because I have some personal things I need to do. You may need to change the CPU model if you're needing to emulate something different. If you are on an x64 system and you're thinking to emulate a x86 system, now you'll be fine because it's I guess you could call it backwards compatible. You can run a 32-bit VM on your 64-bit machine. That'll be just fine. So that's what I'm gonna do. And what else was I gonna say? But if you're emulating like a different architecture or something, then by all means change the architecture right now. That's fine. That's fine. For some reason, with my kernel setup right now, I don't have Vertio working, so I'm gonna change this, but I would recommend normally using Vertio or Vertio. Not sure exactly how you're supposed to pronounce it. I just went ahead and removed tablet because I don't need to connect a tablet to it. I think I can remove these two, but whatever. I should be good now. And it's got a BIOS. Okay. Now we're good. So it's running the 32-bit media, so it's going to run it as 32-bit, even though this is, I guess, technically a 64-bit virtual machine, but whatever, we're all good, you know what I'm saying? What is this? These graphical glitches. See how fast this booted up when compared to the normal one? This is exactly why you do not want to be installing it straight on the old hardware, unless you want to for some reason, which, I mean, you can do it. It will just take a lot longer. So I figure now is a good time to actually go ahead and get the Gentoo menu page all opened up. So I'm going to click on Get Started Now, Gentoo Handbook, and x86, since I am installing to an x86 system. If you're installing to a x64 system, I guess the hardware you're not installing to is that old, but this installation method is, I mean, you can still do it on any system. So I guess first thing is to make sure internet works, but since it isn't a virtual machine, I'm just going to test if it already is running. And for me, yeah, it is running. Go ahead and follow the installation. Now, this isn't really a guide to how to install Gentoo. I can make that if you want, but overall, I'm kind of just going to be speedrunning this thing. Not speedrunning the installation, but I'm not going to go over in too much depth on what exactly everything here is. Now that I got my internet all set up, though, I'm just going to go to the next disk step. But basically, yeah, this isn't a tutorial for how to install Gentoo. This is just a tutorial of how to install Gentoo on older hardware. So it's more focusing on the aspect of the method of doing this on older hardware, not the actual installing Gentoo part. Okay, so I figured I would resume this video so I could show you how I'm going to set up the CPU ID flags. So on the right of my screen, maybe I'll zoom in. What the heck? Where am I now? I have no clue. Okay, so I'm at the CPU flags part, and we did look at what the CPU flags said on the actual hardware. So this is actually pretty simple. All I'm going to do is type in CPU. I'm just going to type in CPU ID to CPU flags, which I did emerge it. Yes, I just ran this command, and then I ran that. So now I know exactly what it's supposed to look like. And I can do echo this, but I'm not going to run this exact command over here. I'm not going to run this command. I'm just going to type it out manually based off of how this looks over here, but then also what it actually was. So I know it was x86, for example. I know that that's how I'm supposed to type it. And then over here, I'm going to type the actual flags that were on the computer. So I had MMX, MMX-EXT, SSE, and SSE2. Those were all my flags. So now I'm gonna put the final quote there and just finish off the command from there. So the only thing I'm really modifying in this command here is just removing this $ parentheses CPU ID to CPU flags and parentheses, and replacing that with just manually typing in what the CPU ID to CPU flags said, or what the output of CPU ID to CPU flags was on the actual hardware when we tested it at the beginning of the video. So hopefully this makes sense. And now CPU flags, boom, CPU underscore flags underscore x86 MMX, MMX-EXT, SSE, and SSE2. So that should all be good. Now I gotta do it for video cards now. Depending on what I had, ATI and older AMD, this is probably what I'm gonna have. So what did I had? I had a what was it? It was something weird. It was like M200. Oh, 200M. I think this is it. R300. That should be good. I've went ahead and tested my virtual machine, and it seemed all fine on the virtual machine. I figured now would be the time to actually copy over this image to the USB. So let me find out. Okay, so this is where my image is stored. I'm gonna go ahead and open a terminal, and I guess I'm gonna mount my USB. First thing actually is, okay, I'm not sure what's on my USB right now exactly. Yeah, let's do that. I'm gonna just do sudo cp/var/lib/libvirt images gentoo.img. Where is it? I found the location of where my hard disk was, and now I'm just going ahead and just copying over this image to my USB. Now, if you have a large image, you're not going to be able to use a FAT32 formatted USB, because I think FAT32 only, or is it just MPFS? I'm pretty sure it's also FAT32, but FAT32 I'm pretty sure only supports a maximum file size per individual file of 4 gigabytes, and I'm going to assume that your image that you're going to flash to the computer is over 4 gigabytes. So I'm using an ext4 file system for my USB drive, and now I'm just going to wait on up for this image to get copied over to the USB, and from there I will go back in real life with the camera and show y'all how I'm going to finish up the process from there, and finally we are going to test out the laptop. Alright, so I now have created my Gentoo virtual machine image, which I'm now going to flash onto the physical laptop, or whatever hardware I'm working with. So, oh yeah, the USB port is on this side. So I'm going to plug it in. I'm going to plug in the power to the computer since its battery does not function. And I suppose now we should get to flashing this image onto the actual drive. This is the final step, and hopefully it all works out in the end. So it should boot up to the CD. Okay, finally it has booted up the installer CD once again. So let's go ahead and list this, and okay, it looks like /dev/sda is my /dev/sda is my hard drive, because that is 40 gigs, and /dev/sdb1 is where my img file is located. So let me find a mount point. You know what, I'll just mount it to Gentoo. Let's do mount /dev/sdb1/mnt/gentoo. Now if I ls that directory, it shows the img file status equals progress, just so then I can see what's happening and how slow it actually is. So bye bye Windows XP. Here we go. And there we go. It now shows me the progress, but this is going to take quite some time. Alright, so it is the next day, because the last clip that I have recorded was kind of late at night, and it finished flashing the image. I simply unmounted the drive, which I mounted at /mnt/gentoo, and then I simply just powered it off, and I also removed the CD from it so that the next time it boots up, it would boot to the hard drive. So let's go ahead and test out if it's gonna work or not, though. All I did was just flash the image to it. Let's see what happens. Wow, okay, great. No problems on the boot loading so far. Oh my. Look how fast this is compared to the CD, bruh. Wow, well that actually booted up pretty fast. Okay, so now that I have logged in, I suppose we could just do start X and see if the screen drivers work fine or not. Seems like no errors so far, but it hasn't quite loaded. Oh my gosh, rat poison is up. Oh, and I can't get my mouse yet till I load an application. There's this weird game I found called Amphetamine? Amphetamine. Yeah, let's see how this goes. Oh look, my mouse is here now. I don't know why. I don't know why my mouse finally decided to show up, but oh, and this game actually runs well, or seemingly. Oh no, I disappear when I jump. That's. I don't think that's supposed to happen. Although this does look like a very strange game. What does this say? I've never played this game before. I just saw it on the. Well, wow. Why is my jumping animation broken? That's my question. What the heck is this? Okay, I have no clue what I'm doing. But amphetamine does run. Oh, you found the what? What is that? I'm like, okay, I'll keep that in mind, bro. Like, what? Oh, there's this one called Abe or something. Oh, what the heck? I mean, it seems like it's running pretty well so far, though, so let's go ahead and give it a shot. Wow, this is a very weird-looking game, but I must say it is running surprisingly well. I'm guessing that the crabs are not good and that I should be getting away from them. Okay, hold up. Yo, I don't even know how to jump. Oh, jump is space.